Hi, this is your host, Laura Powers, and I'm so excited today. I have Susan Bratton on the show. She is a trusted intimacy wellness expert to millions. And we're here to talk about the spiritual aspect of sexuality and sensuality and a bunch of other things. Thanks so much for being a guest on the show.
Oh, you are so welcome. It's nice to be with you today because the world has gone a bit topsy-turvy,
Yeah.
and we are two people who hold a lot of space for others.
Yeah.
I feel like you, in many ways, are a kindred sister. And when I have the opportunity to come together with a sister to hold even greater space for people, it's to me a blessing, a joy. And I feel super lucky to be here today.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's really important now in this time of these very unknown times and things that are happening to stay calm and centered and be focused on kind of loving and connected energy regardless of whatever is happening. So thank you for saying that. And before we get into the launching of the topic, I'd love if you could share a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into what you do. I think it's very interesting and not the typical job that people might have.
Yeah, well, trusted intimacy sexpert to millions. Intimacy wellness is really what I focus on. And what I focus on is helping people transform having sex into making love. And that really has that platform, if you will, has three legs to the stool. The first leg is lovemaking techniques. The second is communication skills, bedroom communication skills, relationship communication skills. And the third leg is sexual health and wellness. Because if you don't have all three, then your stool is wobbly in your sex life. And I run two companies. I'm the CEO and the face of two brands. One is called Personal Life Media. I've run that with my husband and our team for over 15 years. We publish online programs that you can learn how to make love, become sexual soulmates, sex techniques and communication skills. And then we also run a company called The 20, THE20, The 20, and we make libido supplements and blood flow supplements from organic fruits and vegetables. Because if you look at sexuality, heart connection and blood flow are the two most important things to coming into emotional resonance with each other. And that is why I wanted to create things that really supported people at a sexual level. Men have erectile difficulties, women have lubrication and laxity issues, and often they have UTIs and cystitis and things like that. And the more, as we get older, the more the more old we get, the less well our blood flow pumps, not only to our brain and our heart, but to all our parts. So that's my second company, and our teams run both companies. I've done them with my husband for over 15 years. He and I are going on, this year will be our 27th wedding anniversary. So we've been together almost 30 years. And everything that we do and create came out of our own issues of almost losing our marriage, because about 10 years into our marriage, I had really stopped wanting to have frequent lovemaking with my husband. I had
Yeah, I think this
never.
is the key of everything because it all comes to the story. Like, what is it that got you to do this? So now we're getting to the heart of it. This came from a very personal journey for you.
Yeah, you know, they say your greatest wound becomes your greatest gift, and I really love that phrase. And you really know when somebody has a passion for something, when they've come through a fire and out the other side and said, now I understand why it didn't have to be like that. How can I work in service to others to help them not have to get on the brink of divorce themselves? Because we saw all of our friends getting divorced, and we were wealthy, sophisticated Silicon Valley couple. If you looked at us from the outside, you would have been like, oh my God, they have the best jobs. They're so amazing. They have a great relationship. But in the inside, We were disconnected emotionally
Mm.
and physically because we literally just didn't know how to do what I now call getting on the upward pleasure spiral together, because we're so afraid of sex in this country. You know, we have a lot of religious repression, we have a lot of shame, we have a lot of guilt, we have a lot of misinformation and lack of information, and it affects us all. It affected me, and I almost lost my husband, who now I'm having the best sex of my life, and I'm pushing 60. We're pushing 30 years of marriage. It doesn't have to be the way it goes for so many people if you know those techniques, the communication skills, and how to keep yourself in good sexual health.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is really important, not just in the areas of health, but in really in all areas of life. That I feel like there's, through our society, this just kind of general acceptance of things that are not good. And like, well, or just okay, this is okay. And then people just accept that. And I find that, especially for just health as a whole, whether it's sexual health or other, just general health, or, cardiovascular health or whatever, that people are accepting something because it's quote unquote normal or average. And they're not kind of searching deeper and saying, is this what I want? Can I have better? Do I want better? Because I think we can have so much, and we just are kind of taught to just accept real mediocrity in a lot of areas, including in the sexual and sensual, area. So what do you see as a barrier for most people in terms of opening this up for themselves?
Well, I think just like you, Laura, you and your show attract a seeker. You attract someone who is hungry for more, who wants to focus on personal growth, personal development, optimizing everything from their intuition to their reach and impact on the world. That's your tribe. And that's my tribe too. And what I find is that out of 100 people, maybe 15 of them would be open to even hearing more about how sex works, the difference between men and women, our genital anatomies, lovemaking techniques, orgasmic potential, how to create a sexual soulmate connection, whatever it might be. 15 out of 100 are open to hearing about it. And of that, maybe one of them might take action. So you would think everybody wants to know about sex. Sex is interesting. It's actually the opposite. Sex is one of those things that makes people contract out of fear, shame, all of the things that are, the cultural morass that we find ourselves in around sexuality. And then there is a wonderful group of people in the marketplace who are leading things like spiritual sexuality, tantric lovemaking. So I think I see a groundswell of people opening to their sexuality, saying pornography is not what I like. But I want soul connection. I want to experience ecstatic, orgasmic bliss with my partner. I want to surrender to infinity with another human being, or even through solo pleasuring. Mm-hmm. And, there are lots of ways to touch source, to touch Gaia, to touch God. And I think people who are, connecting with angels, ascendant masters, mediums, people who are channelers, anyone who is in what I would call the greater esoteric space, is open to keeping their channels open to connection, to what is greater than we are. And the path in sexuality is very similar to that. When you learn how to surrender your mind and connect in a soulful way with your lover, you have the opportunity through orgasmic pleasure to find and connect with spirit. And they're very similar paradigms in many ways. And I think I've always really been drawn to soulful connection and moving away from transactional sex and into heart-connected sex, into play, pleasure, adventure, sensuality, joy, celebrating that instead of it being pressure, expectation, quid pro quo, whatever it is that I find most people who are what I would call the uninitiated, people who haven't discovered their sexual potential and what sexuality truly can be as a richly rewarding practice that you can do with yourself and with your partner. So I don't know I even know how to end that sentence other than just to like put out there that I think sex is a spiritual practice.
I think it can be, because I think also some of what you're talking about, porn can be very superficial in terms of, the way that people are connecting with their sexual energy. And I think that's where people have kind of gotten this kind of sin idea and everything, is this kind of disconnect. Like when we only approach it from a physical perspective, I don't ascribe to the idea of sin, but what I do feel is like it's a disconnection that happens. So instead of connecting and experience on a full body level, this kind of spiritual thing, what's happening is it's becoming a purely physical thing. And I think it's actually so lacking. And I think that's actually what can lead to this kind of addictive aspect with porn in particular, because it's not truly satisfying, right? And so you just kind of want more and more. I've not myself had this issue, but I have had some friends who've had porn addiction, and it just leads to kind of more and more extreme needs, for stimulation. But I think when we approach it from a full perspective, kind of mind, body, and soul, even as you said, even if we're just kind of engaging with ourselves, then it becomes a completely different experience. And I have gotten the message from my angels and spirit guides that sex is not meant to be kind of a dirty thing, but we have certainly ascribed that. And I think part of it is like literally like where it is in our body is kind of like near the root, and it's where we eliminate, and so there's all these kind of associations with kind of dirtiness and that it's unclean or something. But I find that it's also, that's the from this is where we create. And if we are cut off from that, I think we also are cut off from our ability to create in other ways as well. And so I think there is thankfully this kind of sexual revolution that's happening, especially for women, to claim their sexuality, and instead of having just it to be focused on the man and the man's pleasure. So what have you seen in your work with that change happening? For me, it was like when Sex and the City started, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, this is a show which actually talking about this kind of thing, and from a woman's perspective. And I think that was really the first show of its kind. And I do see that there's been huge changes, before and after that as well.
What was the question?
Just what have you seen, like the change, especially for women, like how they're accessing and connecting with their sexuality in this time?
What I see from women in this time is a great resurgence of taking back their yoni power, honoring their body and their own desires, learning how to ask for what they want, understanding that what they want constantly changes because we are hormonally cyclical, finding that men are not the enemy, that they want to give us incredible pleasure. Learning that when we tell our partners our needs in the moment so they can win, they don't in fact contract. They lean in and want to give us what we want. And the more that we voice it, the more it helps them do what they want, which is to give us incredible pleasure. I find women are much more willing to look at their yoni, touch themselves, self-pleasure, try toys. I find that women...
By the way, just because I'm afraid not everyone knows that, what is yoni? Because I know, but I feel like some of our listeners may not.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Mm-hmm. So in Sanskrit, which is, if you've heard of tantric sex is something that comes from the Indian culture, and it's really from Kashmiri Shaivism more than anything. If you look at the ancient lineages of spiritual sexuality, there's this notion that sex is spirit, and sex can be a level of emotional connection that allows you to not only touch your hearts together, but touch the heart of God. And by God, that can, you insert your favorite word here. And when you are a Tantra disciple and you think about tantric sex and emotionally connected lovemaking, you use some Sanskrit words. And the word for a man's penis is the lingam, and the word for a woman's vulva, which we don't say vagina anymore, we say vulva, because the vagina is just the birth canal.
Right.
And our vulva really is a big area. The urogenital complex includes the vaginal area, the inner and outer labia, the clitoral structure, the perineal sponge, the urethral sponge, the mons venus. There's a lot to the female genitalia. There's a lot to the male genitalia too. And so that's the yoni. And the yoni is often thought about as an opening lotus.
Yeah, I love this. It's such a beautiful kind of, the word has a beautiful energy, and I think evokes this, this kind of blossoming kind of imagery and feeling.
And what's neat is that if you think about your yoni, your vulva, as a yoni, as a flower, as an ever blossoming lotus flower, then as that flower is opening and unfurling and relaxing and showing its beauty, you're actually also increasing your orgasmic pleasure. Most women have barely touched the tip of the iceberg of their orgasmic pleasure, just as they think about the tip of their clitoris as their clitoris rather than all of that buried treasure. The clitoral structure, the urogenital structure, is an amazing thing of two interlocking tissue, erectile tissue systems that are designed. You know how they say, oh, the tip of the clitoris is, it has 8,000 nerve endings. It's the most, it's just there for pleasure. Well, I think when we think about it that way, instead of thinking about it as the tip, the shaft, the arms, which are called crura, the legs, which are called vestibular bulbs, the urethral sponge, often called the G spot, but it's not a spot. It's a whole tube of erectile tissue, the perineal sponge in the bottom floor of the vagina, between the vagina and the rectum, that's erectile tissue. There's this, just this wreath, this collar, this wonderful circle of erectile tissue all around the opening to our vagina. And when we think about just the clitoris, then we're not really in our mind visualizing the full power of all of that pleasure tissue and filling it up with blood and really getting it engorged. Like, women have sex all the time without an erection. Men don't. They want to have an erection to have sex.
Well, they literally can't even do it. So, it's very different for women in that way.
Yeah. So I really love to tell women, wait until you get an erection to have sex, because then it's going to feel 10 times better and your orgasms are going to feel so much better too. And that's all about time. We have to slow down and get emotionally connected and get the touch that we need and be willing to let our partners learn how to touch us so that we get all that good blood flow going, so that we can start to get into our orgasmic potential. And by opening the lotus, by opening the flower, when you open, you're not clenching down. Often many women, they can only experience orgasm in one way, through one pathway, and it's often tense. And when a woman realizes that if she can open and breathe into her yoni with deep breaths, really get the breath moving and the blood moving and the fluids moving, then we start to have some of the best sex of our life.
So how do you recommend for people to approach this if even just talking about this can make certain people uncomfortable? Like literally, like you said, just, contract like, oh, this is bad. We're kind of not supposed to talk about this. What do you recommend for people who struggle with that?
Yeah.
Either individually or maybe talking about it with their partner. Because I think sometimes people might be comfortable on their own, but then, when they're trying to connect with someone intimately, then they have that reaction.
Well, and I think too, most people, and you're spot on, Laura, because most people, they think that most women think that if they're with a male-bodied partner and they say something to him, he's going to go, I know, you don't have to tell me. I got this. You just lie back and let me do my thing, or they're going to contract or take it personally or take it like rejection. And so I created a technique called the Sexual Soulmate Pact. And you can get it at sexualsoulmatepact.com. It's PACT, like an agreement, and print it out and give it to your guy if you're worried, or you can just explain it to your partner. And the Sexual Soulmate Pact basically has two parts to it. The first part is understanding that you are animals. We love to think about ourselves as, human beings, these lofty, things. We're separate from the animal kingdom. But if you think about the animal kingdom, if you think about the tree of life, and you look at the tree of life, it's got all these branches on it. It has the molds and the funguses and unfortunately the viruses and the bacterias. And then it also has, the whales and the dolphins, and it has the frogs and the lizards and the dogs and the cats and the horses and the monkeys. It has the great apes. And on the branch of the tree that is the great apes, it has chimpanzees, bonobos, Homo sapiens, orangutans. Oh, wait, Homo sapien, that's us. We are a primate, a great ape. We are run by our blood sugar. We are run by how much sleep we've had. We're run by how much stress we're under. We're run by our hormones. We're run by our neurotransmitters. And men, the male-bodied of our Homo sapien clan, they are daily hormone cyclers. They wake up with high testosterone and they would like to have sex. Women, we are on a moon cycle. So we are great apes on a moon cycle, which means that sometimes we want nothing to do with that man we're with, and other times we're very attracted to him. And every day for the female bodied of us is a very, very different scenario when you take into account all those factors. So the Sexual Soulmate Pact, the first thing that it does is it gets you to understand that every day is different. Women are very changeable. Men are too. So this runs both ways, but it's particularly important for the difference between the masculine and feminine, not only biologically, but how we're socialized. As women, we're socialized to be good girls, to not speak up, to just do what we're told, right? So we've got to overcome all that programming, in addition to all the religious repression that we've had and the shaming that we've been given. And, the fact that our parents never even talked about our vulvas or yonis, like we've got just a lot to overcome. And so do men. You'd be surprised how much shame men have around their desire, around their penis, either lingam, everything. And so when you start to say to your partner, okay, hey, right, yeah, I live in an animal body, and so do you. How about if we just call ourselves, and this is what my husband and I call ourselves, Team Sweetie. We're the team. We work together in our rational human mind. We work together to make sure that we recognize that sometimes I want to be cuddled like a kitty and stroked like a kitty, and other times I'm a lioness and I'm pawing at my husband, and he's willing to be with me in the moment wherever I am. And if I started out like a kitty and turned into a lioness, he's right there with me, and he never worries. He's actually hungry for my feedback because he understands we're on the same team. So if I just tell him what I need whenever I need it in every moment, then, and he's just, and this is part two. Part one is we're animals. Let's get over ourselves and deal with what is and tune into our bodies. They are wise. Our bodies know what we want. If we just listen to her, she will tell us what she needs. We put it in our mouth so that our Homo sapien partner can hear it, and he or she, anyone across the gender spectrum, this works on all genders, our partner says, oh, thank you, babe. Got it. How's this? A little lighter still, or is this light enough? Or, oh, sure, babe. Let me rub your foot for you. If you can't even settle down into relaxation because your feet hurt, let's get that taken care of, darling. Right? So when he starts to get the feedback and not take it as rejection or he did something wrong or it was some failing of his, when he just is like, sure, babe, lay it on me. What do you need? Tell me more. I got you, baby. Thank you, babe. Yeah, got it. When he starts encouraging you and rewarding you for telling him what you need in the moment, then the whole concern about giving feedback goes away and your sex life starts to get really, really good. So what I say is download the Sexual Soulmate Pact, read through it, understand it, read the stories, and then sit down with your partner and say, I think we should try this Soulmate Pact thing. And it takes a little practice because when guys first get feedback, they can't help but contract because they're testosterone driven. And so they're much more sure, certain, and confident and goal oriented than we are as estrogen beings. Because we're estrogen dominant women. We're worried about everything. We need much more security and certainty, which is why we need more encouragement to speak up. So when he says, I'll encourage you, and if I contract for a second, I'll get over it. I can handle it. I'm strong. When he does that, and you get rewarded for speaking up, and then he learns that it's really fabulous for him because it's like the insider tricks to making you happy, then all heck breaks loose in your relationship, and just the sex just gets so much better.
So I feel like a lot of sexual dysfunction or issues, I think probably for both genders, but I'm definitely thinking about for women, really come from an emotional root. And they think I just don't feel turned on. But it's really something emotional, and it could be either something they need to address with their partner, or maybe they just truly don't even want to be with their partner and they're trying to force it. So how do you recommend for people to handle that when they're just not feeling it, and try to get at the like underlying emotion, whatever is going on?
Yeah. There's two things. Number one, if it's in the greater relationship and there's something about the relationship that isn't serving you, what I recommend, now I have two books that I've sold so many copies of, 25,000 copies of a little workbook called Relationship Magic. And Relationship Magic is a downloadable workbook that allows you to understand what your top 4 relationship values are. And then to have your partner understand what theirs are, because his values are going to be very different than your values. Often women's values include things like freedom, family orientation, security, things like that. Often for men, theirs are more like passion, fun and adventure, growth, words like that. And when you're in a relationship and it's not suiting you, often it can be remedied by understanding the differences between your values and the reason why you're in a relationship. Just why you're in it. Why are you in it?
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to get out of it? And when you start to identify your top 4 values and your partners, you go from playing the golden rule, which is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. You don't want to treat your partner the way you want to be treated. You want to treat your partner the way they want to be treated. They're an entirely different person.
That's
so
huge.
when you get to the point where your number 1 value is security, babe, I really need you to make sure that our health insurance is always paid up, our bills are paid on time, that we always have good tires on the car, that we always have a burglar alarm, that you always get my door for me, that you make me feel safe, that we always have, $5,000 in the bank, whatever it is that are your physical, mental, emotional, financial security needs. That's just a really common one for women. I want you to keep your eye on me. I'm your girl. You got me. I need to know that. And if they do something that makes you feel like they don't have their eye on you, they're not keeping you safe. And then you get that trigger of your security issue, right? So where are you getting triggered? by your partner, that's where your relationship value is not being met. And the chances are that your partner, if they understood that you need something very specific that's not happening and what that underlying reason is, and then they start doing that, and you get up every morning and you focus on what their needs are and they focus on what your needs are, you'll begin to feel like you're in the perfect relationship. And often it's just so many people, so many couples that do the relationship magic workbook, they say that explains so much of their behavior. Like, I never understood why they were driving me crazy with this thing. They were treating me the way they wanted me to treat them, and that's not what I need. It makes you go, oh man, I wish I'd known this 10 years ago. You know?
I think that's brilliant, and it's so simple, but we do tend to treat others as we would want to be.
Natural.
And sometimes it's really hard because a lot of it's unconscious. It's not even a realization that that's going on, or even why we're doing that, or why we think a particular thing is important. So I think analysis of that is really important for relationships, period, because if you are struggling with your sexual relationship, then you're just struggling with your relationship, period, because really it's about not being able to connect well.
Yeah, there is also a large majority of couples where they're having sex in the patriarchal view. We women are
let's talk about this, because that's a really big thing right now. So yeah, what does that mean?
So we women are having sex and thinking about sex like men think about sex still. How would a woman want to have sex? Foot rub, full body rub, having some words of adoration. Baby, you're so beautiful. I love you so much. You're my girl. You make me so happy. I'm so proud of you. I love watching what you do in the world and the difference you make and your loving heart. And turkey meatloaf last night was so delicious. You're such a fine cook. And I love your ass. It's so sexy, right? So just this kind of like running adoration of both, appreciating you for how smart you are and beautiful you are, as well as how sexy you are, like the combination of those things. We love verbal reassurance. We love, babe, I set up the bedroom tonight, and I've got those new aromatherapy candles that you love. And I've got a pitcher of water by the bed, and I got all the soft towels out of the linen cabinet, and I've stacked them up in the room. I've got your favorite sexy playlist on, and the coconut oil is warming in the sink. And I just want you to go in there. I've drawn a bath for you, and I want you to go in there and just take your time. And when you get out, I'm going to dry you off, and then I'm going to give you the best massage of your life. And there's no expectation for more, baby. If you're called to want more, I'm available for you. My body is yours, but I just want to get you relaxed and into pleasure, and I want to take care of you. Like, okay, that's the kind of sex women want, right? And maybe not always. Maybe what we want is for him to walk over and turn off Big Little Lies and grab us by the hand and say, I'm going to take you into the bedroom now, and I've got some new fun things for you. I picked out some lingerie, and it's on the bed. Why don't you go ahead and put that on with those really high, sexy shoes I love? And I've got some plans for you, little girl. Like whatever. It doesn't, these are just a couple of examples, but it's not, I spit on my hand and then enter you. Like what they show on the movies.
And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of thing. Yeah.
That's not, and what we women have to begin to be aware of is how important it is for us to get to full engorgement, which means blood flow to our genitals, our vaginas lubricating again. One of the very interesting things about lubrication, women feel like, I'm losing my lubrication. I'm dry. I'm not turned on. And a lot of that is not having enough healthy fats in our system. It's not just hormones. It's not just estrogen. It's the thinning of our tissue as we age. It's like you said, displaced anger, closing us down. The more we get into our bodies, the more we relax, the more we hydrate, the more we take a lot of good healthy fats, the more we use our blood flow supplements, the more we get just, I'm almost 60 and I'm more lubricated than I've ever been in my life since I was, ever. I can't even say since I was 20. I have more vaginal lubrication now than I've ever had in my life because I've learned how to slow down, get engorged, take care of my yoni, make sure I get healthy fats, make sure I give myself time to become aroused. I don't have pressure. I don't have stress. I don't have performance anxiety anymore. I'm a confident lover in the bedroom who can ask for anything that she wants or needs. And that's my wish for all women, is to honor what's in you in the moment and to be able to ask for and talk about things. Slow down, touch me here. No, that's too hard. Rub that until I say stop, right? And when guys get used to loving your feedback, then it does come down to really asking for what you want in the moment without there being any consideration that there's something you should be doing in some certain way. That's what we have to let go of.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought up the physical aspect, because I think that's a huge component, in particular for men. You know, the issue with Viagra and needing that, a lot of times there are heart issues going on. You know, then the blood flow to the penis and that part of the body starts to get restricted because the blood vessels, like they're you know, have some kind of blockage and there's not as much flow. So, you know, for men, if you need that, then I think it's probably good to get your heart checked out and make sure that you have good cardiovascular health. Although I think that's true for women as well. Is that as much of an issue for women as it is for men? I just know about that for Viagra specifically.
Yeah, you're really smart about that. Most people aren't even aware that atherosclerosis hits the penile vessels before anything else. So it's the canary in the coal mine. You've got heart disease. But the problem is everyone thinks about erectile function as being a man's issue, when women have as much erectile tissue inside our yoni as men do in their lingam. And when I was talking about the clitoral structure with the arms and the legs and the urethral sponge and the perineal sponge, all of that tissue is as much as his penis. And his penis, you only see half of it. Half of it's in his body. When you look at an anatomical diagram of a penis, half sticks out. It's like a banana. Half sticks out and half sticks in. And all that's erectile tissue. And we have that much erectile tissue in our yoni. So when you think about your clitoris and you just think it's that little nub, that is only the tip of the iceberg. What you want to think about is your entire yoni is full of erectile tissue, and you want to get that all plumped up. So it's it's atherosclerosis. And if your husband's taking Viagra and you've been eating the same food for the last 20 years, you've got the same amount of atherosclerosis, right? It's time to go get a calcium heart scan and just check and see what's going on, and get to healthy fats and no more barbecue and no more deep fried foods and no more bottled salad dressings. You got to eat good, healthy, organic vegetables with your own homemade avocado and olive oil dressings, and get rid of that plaque, because heart disease is the #1 killer of women.
So, yeah. And it's often misdiagnosed, unfortunately, that it's not taken as seriously when women have symptoms. And the sort of typical male symptoms of heart disease are usually the ones that are looked for, and it does manifest a little differently for women. So a lot of times when women suffer it, it unfortunately seems to progress farther for them. I feel like I've heard that they're more likely to feel it as almost like indigestion versus in the heart. Anyway, so something to definitely just be aware of. And I'm really glad you brought that up, that it is a significant issue for women and not just for men.
Yeah. And nitric oxide. I do want to say that having a good nitric oxide supplement, I make one, but there's plenty out there. Mine is called Flow. And mine is the only one made from organic fruits and vegetables, not from a lab made from pesticide laden corn in a vat that they convert to arginine. You know, it's just despicable how many supplements are made, and they're full of pesticides, and they're right. The pesticides are in the supplements. They don't go
Right.
away. It's a
Right.
chemical that stays with the entire process. So I made an organic product, and blood flow. Oh my God. I have women who email me and they're like, I've been taking 2 capsules for 10 days and I haven't been this lubricated in my life. Like, oh my God, I'm moist. I'm walking around moist everywhere. And I'm like, yes, more moist yonis. This is my goal. And then more engorgement, right? If I could just get women to understand that their engorgement counts as much as their husband's. And if they are not fully fluffed up and plumped up with blood, try some nitric oxide supplements and make sure your man is using his hands and giving you a great yoni massage. Yoni massage is the #1 thing to do when you feel like you have lost your libido. Take your supplements, take your vitamin minerals, because you need certain minerals, especially to produce your hormones, and take your blood flow supplement and have your partner spend a lot of time massaging your genitals with some nice organic oil. Once you do those 3 things, you're going to get your blood flow, you're going to get your hormones free, and then you're going to get your yoni plumped up, and all of a sudden sex is going to be fun again.
So I think those are all great tips, but I'd love to talk about nitric oxide, because this has been popping up for me, like references to it. I'm like, clearly I need to learn more about it. So what is nitric oxide and why is it important? And I think it's not just for sexual health. I think it's just for health in general, correct?
Yes, it is. So what nitric oxide is a signaling molecule. It's a gas in your body. And the gas works on vasodilation, which is when your body, so your blood vessels, all of your blood vessels in your body, from the tips of your toes to the tip of your nose, right up into your brain, your heart, and all your parts, that whole blood vessel system has tone. So it's tight. And then your body sends the blood around to where you need it. Okay, I just ate, the blood's going to my stomach to digest. Oh, now I'm working on this report at work. Oh, now the blood needs to go to my brain. Oh, I'm having sex. Now the blood needs to go to my genitals. Oh, I'm doing my workout. Now the blood needs to go to my quads and my glutes, right? So how does it do that? It does what's called vasodilation. It relaxes in certain areas and the blood flows into those areas. The problem is that by the time you hit 40, very similarly to how your hormones begin to decline, your body's ability to produce nitric oxide begins to decline. It's half at 50 that it was at 20. So when you're thinking about, I can't think of something, my memory is going, or I can't run up the stairs like I used to, or any number of activities that you begin to feel an energetic decline, it's because your blood isn't pumping through your body at the rate that it used to. You're not getting the oxygenation. You might feel heavy legs. You might get edema, swelling. You might have, brain farts, whatever it might be. A big part of that is from your body's natural decline of nitric oxide. They call it the miracle molecule. And it's amazing that it's so easy to supplement. And so if you have high blood pressure, taking nitric oxide lowers your blood pressure. It actually helps your blood clean it keeps your immune system strong because it keeps your blood clean. It keeps the plaque from forming on your blood vessels. It keeps your blood vessels elastic and fluid so they can operate. It does so many things. Bronchodilation. If you have asthma or any trouble breathing, it helps with bronchodilation as well as blood vessel dilation. And it gets the blood into your brain so your brain can release all your hormones. So your hormones are actually being utilized in your body.
Right. Yeah. It sounds really important. Yeah. It's just interesting because it's been coming up recently in a lot of different contexts. So very fascinating.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
People need to understand how simple and powerful having more nitric oxide supply is.
Right. Yeah. Well, gosh, this has been so helpful. And I love, we talked about a lot of different things, but I think that's really all encompassing, because sexuality is not a simple thing. You know, it's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's biochemical. And we can't deny how all of those things connect with each other. This has been so great.
Thank you.
I believe there was some offer for our listeners. I should have checked in advance, but is there some kind of offer for our listeners?
Yeah, it was the Sexual Soulmate Pact.
Got it. Okay.
And we're going to give everybody a copy of that. That comes from my book, Sexual Soulmates, The
Great.
6 Essentials of Connected Sex. And I think it is the number one technique that you can learn that will make your sex life better. And so I just give away my best stuff, because I think that you should always be just giving and giving and giving and giving. So at sexualsoulmatepact.com, you can download it, read it with your partner, decide that you're going to strike the agreement to start to really communicate and not take it personally, because you know you're just little funny little monkeys.
I love that. That's great. Well, thank you. It's been really such a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
I know you gave away the giveaway. Do you have social media handles or anything else you'd like to share for people to connect with you?
Yeah, anytime you have any questions about sex, I would go to my website, personallifemedia.com, and type in the search box anything you want to know about. I've written thousands and thousands of articles over the last 15 years, and I update them all the time. And then if you want to watch some videos, some of my funniest ones are how guys like to have sex versus women. They're almost comedies. And I have all kinds of things on sexual regenerative techniques and sex practices of various kinds, lovers games, couples games, relationship values, everything. That's at betterlover.com. It takes you to my YouTube channel. And then if you just want to know, who's this Susan Bratton person, you know, my more personal feed is Instagram, and that's at Susan Bratton just at Susan Bratton, SusanBratton.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
You
Thank
asked
you for
great
sharing
questions.
Oh, thank you. I love to talk about this, and this is, I think, a really important topic. And we didn't even get into this, but you know, as we're recording this, it's right in the sort of beginning in the United States, anyway, of coronavirus, and I think there's going to be a lot of people at home having some time with their partners. So yeah, or with themselves. Either way, this is good to know. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.